Hey sports fans, I've got a new show on SB Nation Radio. That's right, a national terrestrial radio show every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. So tune in on your local FM station or stream it live from sbnationradio.com. I'll also post the show right here as a podcast the next day. You in?
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio.
And online at sbnationlive.com.
Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
Hey, sports fans. What's up? It's Coach Nick here. I am a little bit of under the weather, I suppose we can call that. I got battling a cold here, so I got a different kind of voice, but I'm same information for you. We're going live on Periscope. We got live over here on SB Nation Radio. We have a great show tonight. I'm really excited. I got some really good guests coming up. The first guest will be Mike Zavagno, who is a really great X's and O's guy who I interact with quite often on Twitter, and he's going to talk a little bit about the Cavs for us. Later on, we're going to have a really special guest I'm very excited about, Emio Tomeoni, who is also known as the NBA Storyteller. Makes some of the best storytelling NBA videos I've seen out there, and I'm sure you might not have seen him yet, but you will once you hear him talk and come on the show. So I'm really excited about that. And our last segment later on this hour will be with Dave DuFour, my partner in crime. So we have a lot of great stuff coming at you. I am prepping a really cool video about whether or not the NBA is taking too many threes. Yes, I know it's almost sacrilegious, but you never know what happens when I get into the editing stuff. So we'll have lots to talk about there, and I will have to find out whether or not we should be taking more threes. There's some really compelling evidence, and I'm interested to see why corner threes are going down. A lot of interesting things there, and why the quicker threes are going up, and why they're shooting so much better. So the only question there is, are we ruining the game by just jacking up shots so often and so early? So we will have to see how that plays out. But really excited for the show. Really glad to have you on here. So don't forget, if you want to call in, 1-800-777-2907. And you can ask us questions directly. You can also tweet me at B-Ball Breakdown and try it that way, or tune into our Periscope show as well, which is over at the B-Ball Breakdown Periscope channel, and ask some questions there. So looking forward to it. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. No flipping. And we'll be right back with our first segment and Mike Zavagno.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
I will never get tired of that intro. I love that guy's voice. I'm digging the Doors. Really nice selection there for the intro music. Okay. We have coming up in about a minute Mike Zavagno. And he is a guy that breaks down X's and O's much like I do. And he does a lot of it on Twitter. So you got to make sure you follow him. He's over at M Zavagno. There's a G in there, though. So Zavagno 11 on Twitter. And he also is a writer for Fear the Sword. Did I say sword? Fear the Sword on SBNation.com. So we have a brother from another mother, SB Nation Radio, SBNation.com, joining us. So let's bring on Mike Zavagno and talk some Cavs. Mike, how's it going?
Not too bad, Coach. How are you?
I am doing okay. I'm battling a little bit of a cold, but I am going to, like LeBron has rarely missed a game, I am just, going to suit up and give my all.
There we go. That's all we can ask for, right?
I give 100%. So I'm glad to have you on here because what is happening? The Fire Lou chants are coming out a little bit, aren't they?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not really one who necessarily subscribes to that notion. But, there are certainly parts of the fan base who have felt that way for kind of a long time now. I think that a lot of it, obviously right now there's a lot of injuries going on that's certainly derailed the rotations. When you're playing, 2 to 3 G League guys, it's not really surprising that things are going poorly. But, in terms of the defense, I do think that there is an argument to be made for Ty Lue to take back control of defense. Currently, the defensive coordinator, Mike Longobardi, he used to work for the Suns. He came over with Lue when he started and replaced David Blatt. And I think that his schemes have been somewhat questionable this season and put the Cavs in a lot of bad positions on that end.
Well, let's dig into that for a minute because somewhat questionable is interesting to me. I take it, are we talking anything about three-point defense?
Yeah, I think that that's certainly part of it. I think it stems from some of the schematic issues that they have is that they end up giving up a lot of wide-open threes. If you look at the film of the game, the most recent game that they played on Sunday, they were double-teaming the post. And I think that this resulted because Larry Nance is, 6'9". He might not be 6'9", but he's listed there. Brook Lopez, obviously a 7-foot-tall guy. And it seemed like they were fairly worried about that matchup just in terms of Lopez having an advantage in the post. So they kept sending, whether it was George Hill or Jordan Clarkson, kind of down double the post. And their rotations after that, there just wasn't a lot going on the back sides there. And so I really don't think, from an expected value proposition that doubling the post against a guy like Brook Lopez is a smart move. And it just ends up resulting, even if you have Lonzo Ball taking a wide open three, he's shooting about, 34% on those for the year. So the expected value is still over a point per shot there. And on a Lopez post-up, you're looking at about, 0.88 points per shot. So I just don't think that with the math that's the right strategy, but it is one that eventually leads to these open threes.
It's a great point. And also, let's not forget, I did a video recently on Lonzo Ball and the Lakers. He's actually shooting like 42% from three over the last, several games, 20-some games he's been playing. So it's not like he's that same guy who couldn't make a basket earlier in the year, and they certainly know that scouting report. So I guess the issue you're talking about is once you double team, perhaps one pass away, it's a little easy pass right back out. They can find the open man, and then it's a splash.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, Lonzo Ball, he's shooting 46% on wide open threes over his last 14 games. So as you said, the sample's kind of building up for him in terms of those open looks. But, whether it is the doubling of the post, which has been happening recently, or they were in a drop scheme against the pick and roll after the trades, and I think that was just because, nobody really knew what they were doing in terms of the Cavs scheme for the four new guys. And they've kind of gone back to now more of bringing a big up to the level of the ball, potentially in that blitz scenario that they were doing at the beginning of the year. And we saw at the beginning of the year how unsuccessful that was and how the rotations on the backside just, haven't been working for them no matter how often they've tried to guard the pick and roll in that way. And so going back to that scheme is not something that I've really understood. But they've started to do it a little bit more recently, and that's just another one where you end up getting wide-open threes on the back end.
Well, he is Mike Zavagno of the fearthesword.com of SB Nation, and M. Zavagno with a G in there, and M. Zavagno11 on Twitter. I'm Coach Nick, of course, and we are on SB Nation Radio. Mike, here's the thing. You think that right now it's not Tyronn Lue's adjustment to then high hedge and kind of get way out of position on the pick and rolls?
No, I'd like to see them, go back to a much more conservative scheme, a drop scheme against the pick and roll, one that's going to invite fewer rotations on the backside. I'd like to see them try to guard the pick and roll with two guys. We're going to live with giving up a mid-range jumper in my world. And we're just going to, not have so many guys rotating, especially when you're already thin, just in terms of the injuries that have hit them on this Western Conference swing. I just don't see the point in putting guys into continuous rotations, especially when they might be guarding, out of position, a guy, guarding a position up or a position down, just because, you're out there playing guys like John Holland or Jose Calderon who, shouldn't be in an NBA rotation right now, but the injuries have kind of forced their hand.
What I don't like about high hedging anyway is that the big will step out to try and get in the way of the ball handler, and then he's going to try and retreat and run back to find his man, and invariably he ends up screening his own man who's still trying to get around and get to the point guard. It drives me crazy at every level, and it's always unclear to me why you see people who will do that, who will high hedge or try, blitzing is one thing, but the high hedge thing, it's kind of like, circa 2005 or something, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, the reason that it first came about for the Cavs is as a Steph Curry specific defense in the finals where they were, blitzing him, trying to get the ball out of his hands. And then they brought it into the regular season this year as kind of like a base scheme. And I would assume that the thinking was, at least, is kind of what the Rockets have done with their switch everything scheme, is just this is what we think works against Golden State. We're going to practice it. We're going to get good at it. So when we have to deploy it in the finals, this is what's going to happen. But a lot of teams don't have the same personnel, obviously, as Golden State. They don't have a guy who's a nuclear three-point shooter like Curry. They don't have a guy in Draymond Green who's not a traditional center who's going to be saying those pick and rolls. And so once you start to mess with the personnel across different teams, the strategy just doesn't work as well. And bringing into the season as a base defense was always kind of a baffling move to me, and one that I think has backfired significantly and is a large reason for why their defense has been so poor.
Well, as we wrap this up, the Cleveland Cavaliers are fourth in the conference, only a half game in front of the Wizards, who are in fifth, and only a game and a half in front of the Sixers in sixth. They've lost 2 in a row, 4 out of 6. What do you think is going to happen as we get to the last, how many? We don't even have, 15, 16 games left.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that the most important thing for the team right now is just getting healthy. Haven't really been taking away much from the games that they've been playing without a bunch of these rotation pieces. I think that it's kind of hard to judge them until you get Kevin Love back, and then you'll have a kind of pressure-packed, probably 10-game stretch there where you're going to be looking to integrate Love and kind of see how he plays because he hasn't played with any of these new guys. So it's definitely going to be a time crunch for them down the stretch. I don't think that they care as much about whether they're in the 4 seed, 3 seed, whatever it's going to be. It's certainly possible that they could, end up in that 4-5 slot with Washington. But, I think that for them it's more about getting Kevin Love back, getting him comfortable, and trying to figure out, what the right buttons are to push for the playoffs, playing Love alongside Nance, Thompson, LeBron, whoever it might be in that front court.
Great point, all, and I think that's a really big fear here is what's going to happen with Kevin Love. Obviously, he's going to go back in the starting lineup, and that could very well be a bit of a shock to the system since the other guys have been getting accustomed. But I take it you think that it's probably going to be pretty smooth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it kind of depends on what they want to do with the starting lineup. I'd like to see them continue to start Nance and Love together. And then, if you need to close with Love at the 5, you might be able to do that as well. But, just the spacing that Love provides over a guy like, Cedi Osman, who's been starting, or Jeff Green, who happened to start the other night, you're just going to open the floor up so much more. And with Love out there, it gives you a threat of a post-up guy, which the Cavs haven't had outside of LeBron since he's been hurt. And then you're kind of going to push George Hill and Rodney Hood down a role, which I think that they've been both asked to kind of play up in terms of usage and up in terms of responsibility, one role since they've been traded here. So slotting Love in as that second option and kind of pushing both of those guys back into more tertiary roles, I think is going to work pretty seamlessly on the offensive end. Obviously Kevin Love brings kind of a more difficulty on the defensive end, but at least getting the offense back to a place where it's kind of humming, I think that that's been a staple of these Cavs playoff runs more so than some remarkable defense.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. He's Mike Zavagno. I'm Coach Nick. This is the B-Ball Breakdown. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We talk a lot about chemistry on this podcast, how teams get along, what happens when you sign a new guy, and how disruptive that could be. Well, the same concerns exist for those of you in the dating world today, especially with all the apps and sites out there that pretend to be helping you. Random matches, judging by someone's picture. None of these methods work quite like eHarmony, because at eHarmony, they are looking for your perfect match by using years of science, data, and psychological research to send you the right matches. So this isn't a swipe to the right hookup site. It's a place when you're ready for a meaningful relationship. I couldn't get over how thorough the registration process is and left no doubt that they'd find a good pool of matches to choose from. Right now, you can get a free month of eHarmony when you sign up for a 3-month subscription by entering my code COACH at checkout. Stop waiting and start your journey to a satisfying, meaningful relationship. It can be fun to play around with online dating apps, but when you're ready to fall in love with someone and have a meaningful relationship, there's one app that's built to bring you real love. eHarmony. Come see how eHarmony can change your life. Go to eHarmony.com and get started and enter my code COACH at checkout. Now back to the show.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
Hey, sports fans. What is up? It's Coach Nick. Now, that is Kid Rock? I have no idea what that music is, but we'll have to get a playlist here at some point. But I'm digging it. Always like a little slide guitar on a nice Tuesday evening. So glad you can join us on. The games aren't that exciting this much tonight. It didn't look like there was anything that exciting going on. But coming up in a minute or two, we have a great guest who's going to talk about some of the best edited NBA storytelling you'll see online, and he deserves many more views because he does some really compelling stuff. So we will have him on in a second, I hope. So as soon as I see that we're good with that. But other than that, it was an interesting conversation that we just had with Mike about the Cavs and whether or not they really are going to be a threat. I suppose it doesn't really matter what position they do get in the Eastern Conference, but I don't know, man. It's a little bit of a strange look if they get down below, that third or fourth spot. It's all bunched up. And you know what? The West is also a crazy mismatch down there, too. And it's going to go down to like March Madness. So by the end of the season here, we're going to keep our playoff watch and our seeding watch just like we do for the tournament coming up this weekend. So, but let's bring on Emio Tomeoni, a.k.a. NBA Storyteller, because I want to talk to him about how he comes up with his ideas and how he actually produces these videos. So, Emio, are you with me?
I'm here. Coach Nick.
Hey, great to have you. How's it going, my man?
Very good. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, as you can tell, sports fans out there, you can already hear the distinctive voice, and you might recognize it if you've seen his NBA Storyteller videos, but they're very compelling. Probably the best edited thing I've seen because he really understands how to evoke feelings and emotions and use music and voiceover, and they're funny. So, Emio, do you have a background in editing?
I've been in editing and corporate video marketing for way too long, and I spent a lot of time trying to make people's boring businesses seem interesting. So at one point recently, I figured out I could take these tools that I've been crafting to make very boring topics interesting and sell those silly, boring ideas and put it to something that I actually found an interest in basketball and tell my own stories. So I took all those tools and years of editing and just put them towards something that I thought actually people would be interested in hearing.
Wow.
But yeah.
So you're basically describing me because I had the very similar background as well that way, and then we're able to, same idea, use my outlet of what I was passionate about to make these videos. But I missed the class where where they showed you how to do all the interesting tricks of the trade. You're doing multiple layers, you're doing speed fast. You're actually bringing yourself into the actual process where we can see you sitting at the table while you're doing your voiceover and emoting and actually acting, which is just really compelling stuff. You just had a recent one about John Stockton. I was kind of curious if you can give us some insight into how that came about and what that video was.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because this was basically the idea that I had the entire time when I was developing the channel, which was to bring myself into it and bring a process into it. Because I don't know, and you have the experience here, in the sports world, people give you final answers. They tell you what to think. They deliver things in a way where that's it. This is the way it is. And people argue, but nobody ever changes their mind. What I wanted to show was a process. And that's basically what these videos are, is a process of discovery. So I may or may not have an idea. I may or may not have an inkling that something is up or something may not be true. And what I want to do is I actually just share the whole process of discovering that. You might see that in other types of channels and other types of video essays, but I hadn't really seen it in basketball. With John Stockton, I grew up watching him. I grew up watching the Bulls and the Jazz. I grew up watching all those early 90s playoff series, from my home in Berkeley, California, following the Warriors. But I always had an idea that John Stockton was the ideal, perfect point guard. Not flashy, but a pure point guard. And I always assumed that came along with being completely proficient with both hands, left and right, left and right. And I figured you'd see that. It'd be very clear. And I started looking at clips, and it just became very obvious to me that there may be a little bit of uncomfortableness with his left. So I went ahead and made a video uncovering the idea that John Stockton may not have a left hand. And it's really my story of discovering that whether it's true or not, and laying out all that information about that. And it's been received, in a lot of different ways and brought up some very good discussions. But it's really just my process that I'm sharing, and I want people to kind of draw their own conclusions.
Oh, I agree. And, it's interesting because you were charting how many times he actually dribbled his left hand in a lot of the extended highlights you were watching out there. And it is startling because, you don't notice it so much when you're watching it. I certainly was at a lot of those games. But he does, no matter what, whenever he gets a chance, defaults to the right-hand dribble almost in that same way as another legend, Jerry West, who I've covered before on a retro breakdown and showed how he really couldn't go left and dribble with the left hand at all. At least Stockton will do it like one dribble. But you're right, it was startling. And I guess, what does that say about him that he was still able to be a Hall of Fame guard being that dominant with only one hand?
Well, there's two takes on that. And one, it could be a completely defensive take for people who are big fans, is that, well, if he didn't have a left hand, that means he must have been even that much better, that he didn't even need a left hand to be that great. The other side of it is, maybe if he did, they could have gone further. I don't know. Maybe that would have opened up a little bit more. I don't know. That's just an option. You never know if somebody had a little bit more, what they could have done with it. But I generally fall to the side of, he made a terrific career, an all-time great career with what he had. And it wasn't necessarily a hindrance to his game. I mean, he had a variety, but it's just something once you start looking at, it starts to make you question what you automatically believe and what you just assume about the NBA and the league. And that's kind of where the entire channel goes. And some things are a little more consequential than just whether John Stockton had a left hand or not. But I find those interesting little details worthy of a video.
Absolutely. Well, give us an example of other things you're talking about that have been maybe even more of in the conscious of our society. It's sort of subjects you've made videos on.
There's a fun one I did recently, which is it was about Dominique Wilkins, and I feel like he's in his own personal kind of hell right now because every interview that is done with him, they bring him back to the dunk contest and losing to Michael Jordan and then losing to Spud Webb. And they ask the same questions. And watching him in all these interviews, he has the same answer and he puts on a good face, but you can almost see the fire behind his eyes to just get past it and move on. But he's very professional about it. And I just like watching that because we're still holding him in that personal hell with every single interview he's done up until, last week. The other one that I found pretty interesting was Michael Jordan myths, legends, the legends of Michael Jordan. And, there are hundreds of articles and lists dedicated to Michael Jordan's 75 most savage moments or, 7 reasons why he's the biggest competitor or something like that. And there's one on there that just always, it bothered me, and it was that Michael Jordan apparently he ended Muggsy Bogues' career after a pretty common insult on the court during the playoffs in 1 year, in 95, I believe. And apparently calling him something particular ended his career. And you can find this story everywhere, and they all end the same way. After he said those words on the court, and you can find those, if you just do a quick little search, Muggsy Bogues was never the same, and his career is essentially over. It doesn't, these days, luckily, it doesn't take that much time or effort to actually find the truth behind this stuff, but people just don't do it, because in sports, the burden of proof for your story is very low. As long as it sounds good, it spreads, and people think it's fun. But I want to dig into that.
And certainly you have. I remember I was actually at that dunk contest between Dominique and Michael. And I obviously grew up as a Bulls fan, and I didn't see anything wrong in Michael as a hero. But if there was social media back then, we were all saying that he was robbed of the title that year. Michael did 2 free throw line dunks, and so it kind of was like you kind of shouldn't be able to get away with that, right? You should have another dunk in your up your sleeve. I think I actually at the time time was maybe still willing to defend Michael. But you're right. It's definitely an interesting situation how kids today and maybe how the information is shaped isn't accurate. And that's why I love watching your stuff. And if you're out there, you have to check out his channel over on YouTube. It's the NBA Storyteller. It won't be hard to find when you look it up, and you'll see a lot of terrific stuff. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, Emio, and joining us and sharing your thoughts.
Coach Nick, you are a great man and an inspiration. I watch you all the time and always will. Thank you very much for your time.
You got it. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon. And that is Emio, and he also told me he wanted to make sure people knew that it's the best basketball channel that you've never heard of, and he's also a guy who believes Manute Bol should be in the Hall of Fame. So chew on that one while we go to break, and we will have another great segment coming up with Dave DuFour, my partner in crime. So don't go anywhere. Join us on Periscope and right here at the B-Ball Breakdown.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Here's Coach Nick.
I am back. It is Coach Nick. Welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown. If you can't tell, I'm suffering from some sort of weird cold I woke up with. I might have eaten too much sugar, having not usually eating sugar. So it's that much of a terrible thing to eat. So stop eating sugar, everybody. It makes you sound like I do, kind of like a 65-year-old woman who smoked for 50 of those years. But I'm back. I'm pushing through it, and I'm going to get a little pick-me-up from my partner in crime, Dave DuFour, who is at Dave DuFour NBA. You can find him all over the place, like on my podcast once a week at least, and also everywhere else online with him. He'll tell you all about it. So, Dave DuFour, are you there with us, my man?
I am here. You sound terrible.
I know. Don't sugarcoat it, man. I think I sounded better at the beginning of the show, but this is now 40 minutes in, so we got to talk. And you know what? I'm not even sure we got even organized with what we want to talk about.
No, we didn't.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what we can't talk about. We can't talk about the Cavs, and we can't talk about how John Stockton had no left hand. So other than that, and we can't talk about the Rockets because we talk about them all the time. So let's jump into something in the Eastern Conference. What do you say?
Yeah, how about Philadelphia as a potential Eastern Conference Finals team? I'm talking myself into this.
Okay, well, right now they're sixth. They're 12.5 games out of first, and they are a game behind the fifth spot and a game and a half behind the fourth spot. So what will it take? What's the matchup you think is going to get them there?
Well, I mean, I feel like they've got an easier schedule left. I think I read that somewhere. Now I'm going into a little bit of presidential speak. But they're actually playing the Pacers right now, so they can make up some space there. I really think that they've got a good shot at being having home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs for sure. And they're trending upward, which is really nice, especially for a team that was looking kind of tired a couple weeks ago. 6-4 in their last 10, but they've been doing some things lately that I think that you are also a fan of. I really like the ball movement. I'm loving Bellinelli and Ilyasova and what they're bringing to that team, and the experience factor. You can never underrate that. Even if they are in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, I think that they're a threat to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I was a little bit shocked. I had been disconnected for some reason, but when I saw that Trevor Booker got cut several days ago, I was shocked about that. He went to Indiana, and I think he asked for it because, to me, I thought that was a great pickup for them. High energy. He's going to play defense. He's going to get putbacks. So that was shocking to me, but I guess perhaps they want Ilyasova getting those minutes.
Yeah, I think they like the way he stretches the floor, and he works next to Saric, he works next to Simmons, he works next to Embiid. I just think it's a little bit more flexible. He can play next to Amir Johnson when he's out there, and I think that they were looking to give Rashawn Holmes more of those backup 5 minutes as well.
Yeah, and he deserves them. And that's what I like about this team is that they're actually going to develop that and let a guy like him, because he can give you the same kind of effort and energy that Booker does. And in the long run, you'll probably be better off. He might have a higher upside, and that's a great move by them. And they always seem to be dedicated toward giving those younger guys and not picking up like the Kurt Thomases of the NBA and like shoving them in there and giving them 20 minutes a game.
Yeah. And then my other thing that I've been kind of noticing lately, the Bucks have quite a bit. First of all, I think that they're a scary first-round matchup for whoever they play. They're currently the 7th seed, which means it'd be a matchup with the Celtics. They could drop to the 8th seed very easily and be a matchup with the Raptors. I think it's a scary matchup for anyone just because of Giannis and that factor. But they've got a little bit of that Mark Jackson, Golden State Warriors going on. I think they really need a system coach to come in, implement a solid, an offense that's based on solid offensive principles will go a long way with this roster. We might see them next year being very, very potent. Are you seeing some of the same things I'm seeing?
For sure. I mean, we've been complaining all year long about the offense and how it's not really letting Giannis maximize his potential, which, by the way, is a silly thing to say because the dude is averaging 27 and 10 and whatever, all sorts of stuff. So it almost is crazy when we say that, but there's a certain amount of gravity that he could pull and then make his teammates better as well and make the whole thing function better. And I guess we're not going to blame Prunty because he can't do anything in the middle of a year like this. As a interim head coach, so you think they're gonna clear the decks, get a whole new coaching staff?
I think so. I think if Prunty had come in and really knocked it out of the park, maybe they ride with him. But it's been more down than up. Aside from the little bump right after Jason Kidd left, and that was a little bit of fool's gold. I mean, they were playing like a real garbage schedule at that point. So yeah, I would expect not only that they're going to bring in a new coaching staff, but they are going to have some really big names attached. Look to make a flashy hire, and I hope that they fill the job with someone that fits that roster really well, or at least will come in and alter what they do to fit that roster.
I'm looking at their 5-man lineup data right now, so let's get some stats out here. And most of their top played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lineups are all plus, in net rating. Their starters are plus 8.9, and the next most played, which is Giannis, Bledsoe, Malcolm Brogdon. Do we know when Malcolm Brogdon's coming back?
I would imagine if he's healthy, he'll be back, maybe a week before the playoffs start.
Yeah,
but.
Well, that's the guy. I think he's the key to everything. I got a problem with Bledsoe. I don't think Bledsoe is the guy that you can have on a team that's going to get to the conference finals. I think he makes too many mistakes offensively for all the stuff he does that's good, and defensively there are times when he gets just kind of lost. So you need a guy like Brogdon in my mind if you're going to make that deep run.
Yeah, I think that Brogdon, what he brings to that team, as far as size and stretching the floor, I think it's important. And I would love to see what that team look like with an actual big point guard. I mean, Bledsoe plays bigger than he is, but he is 6'1".
Yeah.
So I want to see what this team looks like with a coach that implements a system. I just want to see it. We're getting a lot of contested mid-range twos for Jabari Parker and for Eric Bledsoe, and that's just not good process. Never mind the result. So let's see what it looks like next year. I mean, I hate to say that because the playoffs haven't even started yet, but I just can't imagine this team playing the way that they do, making a big dent in the playoffs. I think they might look scary in the first round, but ultimately I think that they flame out in the first round.
I hear you. Now, I looked at the last 15 games of the net rating of the starters, and that's actually a really bad negative 10.8 when you got Giannis, Bledsoe, Henson, Middleton, and Snell, and they played more minutes than anybody else in more games. So that is certainly a red flag when your most played lineup is negative. I mean, they're getting blown out almost every game, and you can't expect to make a run in the playoffs that way.
Yeah, I agree. And with the 76ers, you've got the opposite thing. You've got, their most played lineup is one of the best lineups in the league, and it's getting better. There was the big knock on Ben Simmons was without Embiid, he the lineup data didn't support him making a positive impact, and he has in the last 2 months really changed that completely. That conversation is gone now. Embiid off the court and Simmons on is now a positive, and you can see that. That it passes the eye test, not just the statistics test. You can see they look more comfortable out there. I love how Saric has been playing for them lately. Again, I really think that, and I didn't even think they would make the playoffs this year. I thought, they maybe they fight for an 8 seed. They have surpassed even my wildest expectations for them.
Really? I mean, I was hoping that obviously when you got Embiid, and we were all had no idea how many games he was going to play, but certainly, with Embiid out there for however many games he's played, that seemed to be a certain expectancy, I would think. I think the thing that killed him was Markelle Fultz. Had he played anywhere near what they would have expected him to do, then they're probably fourth in the conference anyway, right?
Well, and do you remember what we said at the beginning of the season? We said that if they were a top 4 seed, Joel Embiid should be an MVP candidate if he played 65 games.
Yeah, I remember that. And how many games is he going to get to? We have to check that, I guess, is the next step.
Yeah, I'm going to look because I'm not even sure what he's played so far.
It's a lot. They didn't have a ton of back-to-backs.
Yeah, he's played 54 games so far.
Okay.
I believe he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
I do think that's going to happen. 23 points, about 11 rebounds a game. It's pretty good. I think he's anchoring like the number 6 defense, and they are incredible when he's on the court. Incredible.
Yeah. Oh, they are. And then just quickly, Simmons on the court. It's a little bit noisy because he might be with Embiid as well, but his net rating is plus 5.2, and when he's on the bench, it's negative 2.3. So there's a 7-point swing there when he's on versus off. So these guys got to stay healthy, which every indication is that they will. And it's really exciting. And I like the way they built this team. So yeah, this is one of those moments where you never want to be like the 6th or the 5th seed, right, and get stuck in purgatory. But this is one of those moments where we just know that they're just passing through on their way to greater and greater things.
Absolutely.
So anything else you see in the Eastern Conference that kind of catches your eye? We got the Celtics now with Marcus Smart going down. And I guess, is this going to be their fizzle-out moment as well?
Well, everyone is hurt for the Celtics tonight. They've got Horford hurting, Marcus Smart hurting, Kyrie Irving out with a knee. Daniel Tice is out. He's out for the season with the knee surgery. Jaylen Brown with the concussion from that big fall the other night.
That was horrible.
It is. I mean, the Ides of March have hit the Boston Celtics, and man, it is a rough time for that to happen. They're not firmly ensconced in the 2 seed yet. I do think that ultimately they will pull it out, but they've. Well, actually, no. Wait a second. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. No, they've got a 7-game lead. Okay, yeah. So they are firmly in the 2 seed. Ignore everything I just said a second ago. And so I wouldn't be shocked if we see them doing some systematic shutdown. Horford is out sick. I'm sure that they're going to want to get him some rest ahead of the playoffs. Marcus Smart with this torn, tendon or ligament in his thumb, that's obviously a concern. And I would expect Kyrie to maybe play half the games that are remaining this year because this left knee has popped up as an issue yet again. So I'm sure they're going to want him to rest that going into the playoffs.
I hear you. Well, Dave, awesome segment. I can't thank you enough for joining us again, and we'll be back on the podcast pretty soon. So make sure everyone follows Dave over at Dave DuFour NBA, and we'll be sharing more of our comments across there. So, Dave, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, sports fans, and there's no flipping, as we will come back for our final segment coming up in a few minutes, but I can't thank you enough for joining us in this fantastic hour with a lot of great guests and a lot of great stuff coming on. We've got more coming up, so don't forget, I'm Coach Nick, and this is the B-Ball Breakdown.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
Hey, sports fans, what is up? It is Coach Nick, and we had a fantastic show. Some really great guests. We had Mike Zavagno on, who talked about the Cavs. We had Emio Tomeoni, who is the NBA storyteller. Great stuff there on John Stockton's inexistent. No, is that the word? Non-existent left hand. And then Dave DuFour broke down some of the key Eastern Conference matchups we're talking about right now. So great show. Brandon Jennings is back. Who knew? That was a big shocker. I hadn't heard anything about that. And you know what? He looked pretty good. He really did. Who knows if that's one of those, he's all ready to go and everyone else is beat up and he's got the extra energy which will dissipate as the games come back. But we shall see. That was a nice pickup for them. It actually brings up the Teletovic thing. They cut him from the Bucks, and that's the scary thing because he's one of those kind of guys that if you pass it to him, he is going to shoot it. And I might even do a video on those kind of players who you got to be careful when you pass it to them. Guys like Nick Young, remember Eddie House? He was like that. You got to be careful when you pass it and where, because you know when that pass gets there, that shot is going up no matter what and no matter how far. So that's probably what they were getting maybe fed up with. Plus, he was also injury prone and wasn't giving them much. So Brandon Jennings, great to see. What else do we have here? We have a great slate of games coming up this week, so make sure you stay tuned to the schedule over on the NBA, because I saw a couple games. Tonight was kind of a blah, but we do have, let's see here. We have a Wizards and Celtics game tomorrow, which I kind of want to keep my eye on. And then that's about it. I don't think the Lakers and Golden State are going to be that exciting, although Golden State's been a little bit slushy these days. They've lost some games. They haven't looked like themselves, so it's a concern. So keep your eye on that. And then on Thursday, we have an NBA TV game. So we don't even have we don't have the TNT because guess what? They're busy with March Madness. And so I will be all over that once I get back. I will be tweeting the games, though, and trying to do as much as I can from the road. And then when I get back on Monday, I'll definitely try and get whatever great game happened on that Sunday. I'll try and break that one down. The NBA TV national game on Thursday night, though, is the Clippers at the Rockets, which... who knows? The Clippers are a bit of a surprise, so that could be interesting. And then other than that, you have an interesting thing with the surprise team of the Pacers. So the Raptors are visiting the Pacers. So this is a fantastic show. Don't miss everything that's going up on B-Ball Breakdown. I got a couple good videos coming up for you, and don't miss that, especially one that's talking about three-point shooting and whether or not we should cut them out a little bit. So I can't wait to drop that. It's about halfway through, maybe a little bit more. It's going to be a good one. So follow me on B-Ball Breakdown. Find me on YouTube at B-Ball Breakdown. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, not a channel, we're conversation. You win,